Ladies and gentlemen, fight fans all around the world, let's talk some boxing. You're watching What You Need. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, so this video is on something that I heard Steve Cunningham saying, and I was blessed to hear him say it because it validated a lot of what my videos have been saying all along. And of course, Steve Cunningham is going to be facing Antonio Tarver this coming weekend. He said a number of different things that, I've highlighted on my channel. But this is not to big up my channel. I'm trying to say that usually I pay attention to what boxers in the business of boxing have been saying about boxing and trainers. The reason I pay attention to them without going into way too much detail about boxing is because I value what they say, because I need to see it from their point of view. Why do I need to see boxing from their point of view and not from the fans' point of view? I'm a fan of boxing, right? I want to see it from their point of view to understand the sport better. Remember, as a fan of boxing, I don't really know boxing. I truly believe you can only know and understand boxing if you have trained, if you have boxed, if you've been around the sport of boxing, not just as a fan, but also in terms of learning and growing in the sport. I've learned martial arts, and I know training in martial arts involves a number of different things and techniques and skills that you have to learn. But if you're a fan watching two martial artists fight in a competition, you know the general things that they use, but you don't understand the details and the subtleties of what's happening. So I really respect guys in the sport of boxing who box and who do it at a professional level, who say what they say. I respect what they say. And really what I'm generally talking about, which seems so contrary to the popular opinion sometimes, is really what they've been saying. So Steve Cunningham said a couple things validate what I was saying, but really it's not what I was saying. It's really what boxers have been saying. And he said, first and foremost, he was talking about age. A reporter asked him, when did you expect to leave the sport of boxing? Because Steve Cunningham is 39 years of age, as you can see right here. He's 39. And Steve Cunningham addressed that. And he wasn't the only guy that addressed it. Over the weekend, and Shane Mosley was promoting his fight, and his wife-to-be, who's helping with the promotion, she was speaking about Shane Mosley not being past his prime, not being old when he fought in 2010 after knocking out Antonio Margarito. And she explained his opinion that you don't get old coming off of one of the greatest knockouts that you've had in your career. You don't get old overnight. You get old over time. And she was explaining that he had to take a break from boxing because he hadn't taken a break from boxing since his beginning of fighting, since his amateur career, since his beginning. So he took a break to rejuvenate himself. Think about Miguel Cotto. He also took a break from boxing, and it seemed to have done him well because when he came back, he was able to knock out all of his opponents. But Steve Cunningham is able to say, I'm 39 and I'm here. And he went on to explain that certain styles in boxing, there seems to be a negative sentiment towards certain styles in boxing. And he went on to talk about how it seems that being someone who doesn't take punishment in boxing, who may throw a jab and then pivot or roll under the counter that's coming and pivot out the way or pivot backwards, that's called running now in boxing. That using some smarts in boxing and boxing with smarts is frowned upon. You need to engage more. And he says it seems to have reflected in the judging. And remember, Steve Cunningham is a cruiserweight champion, right? That's why I even have his box rec here. This man was not just a cruiserweight champion, but he also was a hard worker. He never, like Marvin Hagler, he never had anything handed to him. To hear Steve Cunningham saying that was wonderful. And that helps me to go into this segue on the Boxing Hall of Fame. And you'll notice that in the Boxing Hall of Fame, whichever one you're talking about, the World Boxing Hall of Fame or the International Boxing Hall of Fame, whichever one, the Boxing Hall of Fames, what they're there for is not to rate people. It's there to honor the people in boxing which have contributed to the sport in a meaningful way. So a Hall of Famer doesn't have to be somebody who has had a ridiculously stellar career, who has achieved a whole lot, and who has, great skill sets and great opposition. It's about their contribution. What did they do? Because the Boxing Hall of Fame is linked to museums. Both Boxing Hall of Fames are linked to museums. And that's to help cement the boxing history of boxing. That's what the Hall of Fames are there for. So you can follow the history of boxing so that certain great names and certain epic events will not be forgotten. That's what they're for. Now, there are also regional Boxing Hall of Fames. You have the British Boxing Hall of Fame. You have the New York Boxing Hall of Fame. You have the Nevada Boxing Hall of Fame. And when sports have Boxing Hall of Fame, it legitimizes the sport. It legitimizes their history. So that's why those Boxing Hall of Fames are there. And what does Steve Cunningham have to do with the Boxing Hall of Fame? Well, Steve Cunningham, is a very, very good boxer. But he's probably not going to get into the Boxing Hall of Fame. He might have been a more skilled fighter than some of the guys who are at heavyweight who will enter into the Boxing Hall of Fame. And so my point with this is that, sometimes fighters don't enter into the Boxing Hall of Fame, but they actually had better careers or more stellar performances. But by having a certain fighter enter the Boxing Hall of Fame, you sort of enter into that Boxing Hall of Fame, the era. And if you are a diligent boxing fan and you start to look into the history of boxers and fighters, you are going to at some point find those great boxers of that era who were not in that Boxing Hall of Fame. Because as we know, there are some people in the Boxing Hall of Fame who are not there because necessarily their achievements that are greater than others of their era, but for their entertainment value. Some of these people were very entertaining. And when you look at people in their era, in their time, some of them are much more skilled fighters, much better fighters than them. And that's something worth noting, because when you can see all these other fighters and what they have done in the sport of boxing, how they achieved and their fights, you get to understand that more important is some of the events of the era, some of the epic events and people who were part of these epic events. And the Boxing Hall of Fame is not necessarily about rating people above other people, but sort of time stamping an event and a time and an era. That's why in the Boxing Hall of Fames, you have other people outside of boxers who contributed to the era, who are people of influence, and they're in the Boxing Hall of Fame as well. Basically, that's what the Boxing Hall of Fame is there for. It's there for you guys to go check the museums. It's for the fans. It's for the people. It's for you and me to learn about boxing by following significant events and hallmarks. The World Boxing Hall of Fames, they came rather recently. They came in the 80s. There were no world-recognized Boxing Hall of Fames before that. So boxing is becoming more structured. And just for you guys to understand a little bit more about what I'm saying, I was listening to Fight Critic's video on the evolution of boxing. It was awesome. There are a lot of factors. But something that may have eluded Fight Critic, while fans and people appreciated certain styles over the different eras, something that people need to understand, is that literally the styles have evolved over time. Literally. You all you have to do is watch how boxers boxed early 1900s and late 1800s, okay, to see that boxing has changed immensely since then. And it's evolved. It's gotten better, okay, in terms of technique and styles. Today, fighters fight what we call smarter. Even the brawlers and the bangers, they brawl and bang smarter. Okay? And what do I mean by smarter? You see, there's a lot of terms in boxing. I didn't say more intelligently. I was corrected on that when I actually started to really listen to what the boxers are saying. You know, there are different terms like quick and fast. Quick and fast are not the same thing, for instance, right? But let me just get into it. Smarter means that boxers are learning how to make better decisions when they're boxing. Better decisions. And Steve Cunningham used that term as well. He said, you have to box smart. And what he was talking about is utilizing the skills you have to make proper decisions in that ring. You've heard Floyd Mayweather say it's about boxing smarter, not harder, but he makes it popular today. But actually, Roy Jones Jr. said it. This is not something exclusive to Floyd Mayweather. In fact, people used to say, Roy Jones Jr., he doesn't take risks. And everybody loved Roy Jones Jr. But if you think about it, Roy Jones Jr. didn't take any punishment because he knew the angles of approach to get inside. I'm trying to keep this very simple. All right, so that you guys can understand. He knew the angles to approach to go inside on his opponent, and he also knew the angles to move out from the engagement of his opponent. All right, Roy was an ambush fighter. The boxers have improved and evolved. The sport itself has improved and evolved. And I just made the case with the Boxing Hall of Fame. This sport is now legitimizing itself more and more. And as time goes along, the sport is going to be more and more legitimized like other sports. You know, we evolved and moved from the Marcus of Queensberry rules to the Association of Boxing Commissions rules and regulations, so that all the commissions are under one agreed banner for rules and regulations like a league. You know, all of these things have happened in boxing, and all of these things legitimize the sport. The role these commissions play in rigorous regulations to protect the health and safety of athletes only creates a more positive image of boxing to the communities which have resented it for its brutality and its primitive nature. This enhances the sport of boxing, not only improves its image, but also causes new fans to join the sport of boxing and active fans who get involved in boxing as a pastime for improvement in their health and wellness as well as their fitness levels, even professionals outside of the sport of boxing. You guys have a great one.